Yo, good morning, beautiful people. And I'd just like to reintroduce myself. And I'm going to start with two quotes that I've heard. The very first one is from Marcus Aurelius, and he paraphrased, and I'm paraphrasing right now, but he says that if it is achievable for one man, that is achievable for you. And then the other one is that life happens for you, not to you. And the reason I've given you those two quotes is I'm about to reintroduce myself and let you deeper into my history, like where I came from and why I chose to leave construction and do men's work and dedicate my life to being of service to men. So the very first thing I'd like to mention is back when I was a child, we grew up in housing commission. So we struggled a lot financially, we struggled a lot emotionally. There was a lot of pressure that my mum was holding at a very young age. And just through that aspect, I just want to mention too, so we grew up in housing commission, which meant we were financially poor, but I never actually realized that we were poor because there was so much love. There was so much love is the exact answer for this, because there's so much love in my upbringing. And there was also a lot of tragedy as well. But so the tragedy was that my dad left when I was 7. Now, Dad leaving meant that I was always looking for eldership. And so I remember when my stepdad came into the scene and Mum started dating again, it was like he was inflicting on quote unquote my family. And we butted head like billy goats for so long. And it wasn't until my 21st birthday that I actually realized the enormity of what this man, my dad, had done. He took on 4 kids, and I haven't spoken about Dad like this before. He took on 4 kids that weren't his own, and he raised them as if they were his own. I went to private school. I played a lot of football. I traveled everywhere I ever wanted to do. And to the best of his ability, and trying to instill really beautiful values and work ethic within me. And it wasn't until I was 21 that I realized and stepped back, and I started having a bit more of a worldview of the enormity of what this man did. I know I was talking about my story. I just want to mention about what his story. So my sister is 12 years younger than me, my youngest sister, which is to Dad, my second dad. He would be so tired after work, and he would still go out the back and play soccer. He'd be like eyes drooping, and he would still go play soccer with my little sister because she loves soccer every day, every single day. So how to be a father, how to raise children, I got to see that indirectly from my stepdad. Now, fast forward, I was about 17, and I started hanging around dudes that were like 22, and they were dealing drugs. They're out of school. They would come bounce me out of school, and some of these men have served over 10 years jail. One of them just got out. Another one of those men shot a police officer, then turned a gun on himself. And so these are the men that I was hanging around, looking for brotherhood and mateship, and how to be a man and how to navigate and do this life. Like myself, these men were very, very wayward, and there was some beautiful synergy within that, because there was this thing of it was like blood, nothing would ever break our bonds, but it was from a very unhealthy value system of what we valued. And so it was valuing, the values were not effective. At the age of 18, got a 3-year suspended jail sentence. So that meant that at the age of 18, I got told, I went to court, my mum was with me, and the judge, I had legal advice, the duty solicitor they call them, which is a free solicitor. And the judge is like, hey mate, where's your legal representation? You're about to go to jail. I'm going to adjourn this. You go get a barrister. So at the age of 18, had a $20,000 loan. So went into debt at 18 for not an investment, but to keep me out of jail. And so that was my transition from moving to Toowoomba to the beautiful Sunshine Coast. And I came here and then got into construction. So for those that don't know, I'm an ex-tradie. So I was on construction sites for a decade. At the age of 24, I actually became a foreman, which was I was working for the government at the time, Main Roads, and so at the time I was one of the youngest foremen, if not the youngest foreman that the company had ever seen. And at the time it was like 2011, 2010, the floods were coming through and there was a lot of people losing their jobs, and then especially throughout the government system, so there's a lot of insecurity around. And then so I was looking for elderships, so I was looking for these other supervisors, other men that were double my age to teach me how to do things, but they didn't want to pass on their knowledge or their wisdom because of fear, because they thought that I was going to take their jobs. And so I really saw in the construction industry how much people weren't willing to give away what it is that they know, and they weren't forthright. There's a lot of this ineffective masculinity traits through these trades. And so at a very young age, I was a foreman, though the beauty with my teams is that they excelled. And I believe the reason for that is I truly actually gave a fuck about every single one of my team members. And by that, I mean, it wasn't just like I was their boss, I was building relationships constantly. And so at a very young age, I also found that, one, I was able to lead men effectively. Two, I was able to hold space for men. And then three, that I could build really healthy relationships. And four, I was able to bring people together with a common vision. And that is like my superpower. So have all of these men and from all different walks of life, but then get them in cohesion working together and better than these foremen or these teams that were double my age. Now, the reason for that is because I actually gave a fuck about them. I wanted to know about who these men were outside of the job. So back then, from that 24, 27, and up to 28, 30, I was asking all of my team members like their dreams, their aspirations. So I've always been in this growth mindset, but the growth was always about career and title. Whereas I got into personal development around 8 years ago. Well, I had my spiritual awakening when I was 27. I'm 38 now, but it was really about like when I was 30, 31, when I got back from South America, that I started to really dive into personal development. And then that's where I started being innovative with myself, looking at myself and for the growth mindset. So again, drop comments here if you have worked on yourself, because up until I was 31, I didn't even realize that it was an actual thing. I didn't know about personal development. I hadn't read any of the books. I hadn't done any of that. I had a spiritual awakening, and in those next 3 years, I studied Buddhism. And so and that was the only thing, because I had my spiritual awakening. Only people I knew that meditated were Buddhists. So I went and studied Buddhism for a couple of years, 3 years. But I hadn't done any personal development. Didn't even know about this thing, men's work. I don't even know how prolific men's work was back then. But like now, men's work is through social media. Like if you're part of my audience right now, you would definitely have some men's work in your feed, 100%. If it's not from me, it's from a lot of brothers that I know, but it's starting to really shift. And now, why I feel men's work is going to be bigger than the feminist movement, because women needed to rise. Women need to claim back their power, and this archetypal stuff, the patriotic, like a hierarchy of the men versus women needed to change. And I'm so glad it did, because it got us into this paradigm where we are now, where men are starting to claim back their power and working on themselves. But why men's work is going to be bigger than the feminist movement, is my prediction, is because we're doing it for the sake of. So men, we want to be better men. We want to be better men so that we can be a better husband, a better father, show up more for our family and community. So we're doing it, yes, for ourselves, but then for the sake of others. Now, yeah, drop a comment here if how new are you to men's work? How are you? Have you never done any men's work? Have you sat in a circle? Have you done a retreat? Have you done a workshop? Have you done coaching? Have you done anything? I'm really intrigued to know, especially the audience, is where you're at in this cycle and where you're at in your journey of life. So it wasn't until I was like 31 until I actually found this stuff. In the past 7 years, my life has grown tremendously because of it. Now, when I was 22, so just before I started becoming a foreman, I was 22, a gentleman in my vortex, very, very, very close to me, attempted suicide, slit both his wrists. Because of my story and the pain, and I've lost like so many men and friends through suicide, I used that pain But I've been now, the thing to be able to use that pain is I've had to first feel it. I had to feel all of that grief, all that sorrow, all that anger, that frustration. I had to be able to be with that. And so now that pain or that story is no longer pain. It sits on my shoulder, and I'm able to see that part of myself and activate it when I don't want to do things like business and emails and grow and come and help support men so that they don't take their life. But majority of men that come work with me, I help them be the best father they can be, best husband or partner in relationships, how to feel confident with themselves, be with their emotions, how to feel, how to be conscious, how to have emotional intelligence, how to find purpose so their life has meaning and they have existence. That's my juju. That's what I want to do. And for me, that is activating. And it's only recently, with about 3-4 months ago, that I realized, been working on what is like my actual mission to be on this planet. Why am I here? And it's like these stepping stones over the past 4 or 5 years have got me to this actual statement. And I'm here to activate a generation of men. That's what I'm here to do. And by activate is taking that longest journey of a man's life out of here and into here. Because in here, when we come from this place, this is who we want to be as men. Confident, strong, coming from this place with no fear, but coming from love. But then that's what is required from us. That's what our family wants from us. Our children want from us, coming from this place. And so that's my take on what it means to activate a generation of men, or activate a man. So I know that I got activated, and that activation, I started to question everything, my whole existence, and started coming from like life happening for me rather than life happening to me. Because all of these things in life that I've just been mentioning were pretty horrific and like detrimental to my mental health, my physical health. At one stage I was over 100 kilos, because I was looking at it that life was happening to me. All of these things were happening to me, so I was victim to my life. But it wasn't until I actually started stopping pointing that way and pointing back in here and taking ownership responsibility of all of this, my life, how people are treating me, my mental game, my emotional game, my spiritual game, my physical game, that things started to shift and change in my life. I started journaling. I wrote in my journal, who am I? Why am I here on this planet? And I didn't know the answers. So I was journaling and realized I didn't know. And then someone offered me to read the book Conversations with God. So I read that. And then I was just like, wow, everything in this book is what I believe within me. And in that place of help, I need help, I want to give help, I want to be of service. So how can I help as many people as possible to live life on their terms? How can I activate a generation of men? I need some help and support to do that. And so, guys, this is why I do what I do. If you're still here, I just want to say thank you for listening to this story. If you're new to the audience, if you're new across any of the socials, I just want to say thank you for being part. Thank you for being part of this. For anyone watching, just know that your story is your superpower, and that it doesn't define who you are, but it can also, you're not defined by your past, you're defined about who you choose to be. And you don't have to be a man or a woman that you were 5 years ago, 5 months ago, 5 weeks ago, let alone 5 minutes ago. That you have the ability to change and move all the time. And it's only up to you. So those things that I mentioned, I've got them all written here. Those 5 things, those 5 big things around being in house commission, dad leaving when I was 7, being in construction and a foreman when I was 24, when I was 22, that dear person close to me attempted suicide, and then failing in business when I first started. And like I mentioned, fatherhood, relationships, business, they will show you where your gaps are and where your work is. Much love, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Much love, and appreciate the space for the reintroduction. You.